Okay, and I am going to share the browser. Eventually. Come on. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Interesting. Okay. Okay, good. Just a browser. All right, so welcome everyone to the September 28th iteration of the MicroProfile live Hangout. A link to the meeting minutes is in the chat, and please click on the link and add your name to the list of microprofilers who are on the call. And does everyone shared responsibility to take notes? This meeting is being recorded along with the chat. Both will be uploaded to YouTube after the call. So I think that's my normal spiel. I don't think I've missed anything. This may be a short meeting, small turnout today. And a few people can't make it or will join late. So we'll see if we make it past late or make it too late. Okay. Just under general, one of the things I took an action item on, and I didn't put it in my task list. So it was my to-do list was to not, because I didn't get in there. So I will send out a link probably later today or tomorrow on a program plan draft that will be kind of a starting point to stimulate discussion. So my bad for not getting that out, but I will get that done. That's it really under general. Releases. So I am going to ask, let's see, Edwin can't make it. Emily will join late. So Edwin, not Edwin, sorry, Emerson, if you can give an update on 5.
Yeah, there is the pull request open. We got some updates from Emily this morning, so I'm gonna apply and update the release candidate number for the different specifications. And I think it's nothing blocking there. Just some comments about the metrics one, but I think it's already Emily already replied, and maybe a couple more eyes for the review, and I think we are almost done for the pull request. Edwin opened a ticket at the end of last week for the release as well. And that is what we have in mind about the 5.1.0.
So I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. It's kind of covered relevant in 2 places. So you had a technical call last week, Roberto, and there was a discussion about whether or not to include metrics. I think you led that part of the discussion, and Emerson kind of referred to that. You want to give a summary of the status of that discussion? Oh, you unmuted, and now you're muted. And I want to, yeah, okay.
Sorry, I had some issues with the mic.
Okay.
Yeah, so metrics was we never got into the metrics discussion, but it was also part of the agenda because we got stuck with open tracing. But I think the reasoning is somehow similar. Even for open tracing is a little bit easier to understand, right? So my proposal is, or at least I try to propose for us to remove, not to remove, actually, was to move open tracing from outside the platform and make it just like a standalone spec like we have for GraphQL and reactive messaging and context compression, right? And the reason for this was that we already know that open tracing is an abandoned / maintained effort, right? So all the efforts on the open tracing move to OpenTelemetry. So we know that we want to move to OpenTelemetry soon, and we know as well that there are some efforts happening right now in the MicroProfile community to explore OpenTelemetry and try to come up with a message on how to use it, or at least to figure out how MicroProfile can adopt OpenTelemetry. Now, my concern is that going with a MicroProfile 5 release, and we know that we're only able to do breaking changes on major versions, is by pushing open tracing again, is just sending like a wrong message by saying, hey, we still, open tracing is not longer in development mode, or is no longer adopted, but we're still behind it and pushing it forward, right? So meaning that if we want to remove open tracing from the platform, we're gonna have to wait for MicroProfile 6, that we don't even know when that's gonna happen. So I understand all the arguments from all the sides, and I know that I was one of the big advocates about saying that MicroProfile 5, because we were doing the rename, was only going to be the namespace change. But thinking about it better, I thought that we could at least discuss if open tracing should not be at least downgraded from platform level to standalone, right? So this will give, so in essence, what will happen is open tracing will still be there. We'll still have the namespace change on open tracing. It's just not part of the platform, and implementations that want to move to open telemetry, they can do so, and they don't have the burden to have to support open tracing. So it's kind of like the standalone specs that we have right now, that they're kind of like optional, right? They are on the MicroProfile world, but you don't have to implement them or support them if you don't want them, right? So that was the reasoning, and the metrics was also, I mean, we never got into the metrics discussion because we have a similar thing between metrics and micrometer, but unfortunately, my proposal for open tracing didn't got any support from anyone in the community, so I ended up not even going with the metric discussion. But it was very similar argument between metrics and micrometer. So kind of like the parallel between open tracing and open telemetry.
Thanks for that review. Does anyone have comments on that?
Yes. I'm co-working with a MicroProfile open telemetry, and during that discussion, we came to the point, yeah, open tracing is still in heavy use, and there is not a big change between open telemetry tracing and open tracing. Basically, one of the big changes is the internal data format, which will become vendor independent. And we are not ready now, but there will be, open telemetry includes a shim. So open tracing can still be used with an open telemetry backend. So we can have a smooth transition for users and even the platform vendors, and we should keep open tracing and also open telemetry metrics is not finished yet. It's in the feature freeze status. So removing MicroProfile metrics from the platform would be a bad sign for users of that standard. And also within OpenTelemetry, we had a discussion if OpenTelemetry metrics is widely adopted because it is oriented on the Prometheus world, and also within Java there is the micrometer fraction that heavily use that standard, and maybe they coexist for a while or for a long while. So metrics would be even harder to remove, I think.
I mean, those are valid points, right? But one of the things that's probably we need to realize or consider, and this is not about the technical aspects of either tracing or metrics or whatever, is the mindset we were supposed to have on a MicroProfile. So ideally, a MicroProfile will be move fast, break things if you need that. But what we are experiencing, seeing is that we almost like following the Jakarta way of doing things, right? So every time that we propose to break something or to remove something, and this is not even removing. I mean, people will still be able to use it as they were using it so far, right? But every time that we try to propose to remove or to drop something, we always try to come with arguments to not to do it. And I believe that that is going against the main idea why MicroProfile came to be, right? That's at least just my impression. And I mean, this is not a critic to you, Jan. It's just like general. And I think that we either have to have this discussion as well and reevaluate if the core principles of MicroProfile changes and we don't want to break things like we said that we would, and that's completely fine. What I'm doing right now is I'm just questioning if the core MicroProfile values are still valid, because that doesn't seem to be the way anymore.
Sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt you. I want to make sure we don't necessarily have that discussion here, because I think there's well, two things. This is intended to be a status call, and second, I think there's a lot of people who might want to chime in that probably aren't here right now. So go ahead and finish up your thought, Jan. But I just want to make sure we don't kind of dig in too deep in this conversation here.
Yeah, what we also discussed, of course, the next release after MicroProfile 5.0 could be 6.0, and then we can remove it. And one difference between Jakarta E and MicroProfile is then we can remove it with one major release, and remove it now from the platform is some kind of a breaking change I would like to prevent. That was part of the discussion.
So can we continue this discussion during next week's technical call?
Yes,
Do we think that, yeah, so it sounds like the conversation isn't necessarily quite done. So let's see if we can have that conversation next week. So in fact, I'm gonna stick that here in the notes. Continue discussion during next week's technical call. Okay. And I think this brought up a really good point as well, that, we've been focused on 5, but we haven't really started kind of pre-planning a 6. So I think one thing I'm going to do is start a thread on MicroProfile .next. I'm assuming it's going to be 6 as well. Yeah, expect that sent out. Let's see here. And what I am going to do, maybe I'll stick it because it kind of happened under this discussion, to start a conversation on MicroProfile 6.0 in community local group. There we go. There we go. All right. I think that's really all we have here. Any other comments around releases?
So the idea is that would be decided next week. I guess I'm just trying to figure out for implementers, and when do they, how much notice will they have? Maybe it doesn't really matter.
Well, I think we have to decide on this next week, if we want to stick to our timeline, which is October 22nd. And by the way, I have a bullet there that I did update the calendar with the release date and the submission to the EMO date, the first week, I think it was, in first Wednesday in October. So that's a good point, Ed. We're going to have to nail it down next week. So I think everyone should be prepared to have that conversation for next week. In fact, Roberto, if you could send a message to the Google group, kind of reminding people, hey, we're going to continue this discussion with the intent of finalizing a decision during the next week's technical call, that would be great.
Yeah, I can. I mean, it's already on the agenda item
Okay.
because the idea was not only to discuss this thing, but also the technical goals for the program, which include open telemetry and micrometer, which tie into all the entire conversation. But not to be pessimistic, I'm not completely sure if we should waste any time discussing what should go into MicroProfile 5 release again, because I mean, we didn't got any support, or at least I didn't got any support last week, and I don't think that changes in 2 weeks.
Okay. So you think
so
MP5 is locked down with those being
I
included then?
mean, I can ask again, but I'm pretty sure. I mean, I know there were some people that were not in the call last week, but at least it seemed that I was the only one in favor of doing that, and everyone else was against. So, and I even mentioned I just wasn't going to drop that because it was just a waste of time to keep continuing
Okay.
discussing that. If there are any other, I'm not sure if there are any other new elements, but I don't believe there are. I'm guessing that the opinions of the rest of the community are going to be exactly the same.
Oops. Consensus, sorry. There we go. Okay. All right. Okay, I'll move on to the next section if there's nothing else for MP5. Okay, specification process. I think Roberto, you're the only one on here in the list. Anything?
Not that I remember. I think that at least there's been some things here and there, but nothing major as far as I remember, really.
Hey, something to be aware of is maybe Ed's just going to bring it up. The EFSP 1.3 rev is getting close, and the changes are being tracked in it's either GitHub or GitLab issues, and there's a draft out there, a changes draft out there for you to take a look at as well.
Can you update the doc, Paul, with a link to the draft?
Yeah, it's not so much a draft. I think it's a diff version, but let me see if I can find it.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
There is one thing. I'm not sure if this on this bullet or if it's in another bullet, which is the process for the TCK challenge and the compliant implementation for the platform. If you remember there was that GitHub issue that David opened with all the process over there, and we in the last technical call we discussed that again, and well, not like in detail because the detail was like 2 or 3 weeks ago, but we warned the community that they should go over there and move that forward if you have any questions. But the problem is I don't see any movement on that PR, and we really need for that to move forward, to be able to make the platform compatible implementations well, official, right? If I remember correctly, Emily did send an email on the list because there was the idea is that we have like 15 days for a compatible implementation for people to say if there was any problems or not, and then she said, hey, there's already 15 days passed, so it should be approved. And Paul Buck mentioned that there still needs to finalize the MicroProfile compatibility program, and I believe we also need to finalize the process for the TCK challenges and all of that.
And also the logo selection.
Yeah, it's all related. Yeah, you definitely need to finish or finalize the TCK process document that includes the challenges process.
Paul, do you want to just highlight the updates we did yesterday? in the marketing. This was to the branding program.
Yeah. Well, I guess we've documented progress in the call with regards to elements that need to come together in order to finalize the program. A question that remains is this one that has been discussed in the marketing and brand hangout and on the mailing list with regards to should be membership in the working group be a requirement to being eligible for participating in the marketing or in the compatibility program and having access to the brand. I think Scott Stark has weighed in strongly from from a Red Hat perspective to say it shouldn't. From an Eclipse Foundation perspective, our stated position is that membership in the working group is a requirement in part to be able to fund the work required in order to implement and administer a branding and compatibility program on behalf of the working group. Albeit there may be some variation in there where there could be a plan where you didn't require membership, or approach where you didn't require membership in the working group, but you could individual vendors could pay a fee to have access to the brand and use the compatibility program. Albeit I don't think that doesn't align with what Scott had stated in his email or his comment to me on that. So I think there's still some discussion to be had with regards to coming up with something that's workable. And then a pragmatic approach here could be just to get going with what we know, and then deal with how to open the program up at a later date.
So just to clarify, it's not an implementer, it's a brand, somebody who's applied for using the MicroProfile branding. Is that right?
No, this would just be the compatibility logo.
Right. But anybody, are we talking about, I'm reading what is written here. Should an implementer with a compatible implementation be required to join MPWG? I don't think it's an implementer. I think should a recipient of the brand.
Okay. I don't necessarily disagree with that here.
I'm not. I think that's the question. Is that right, Paul? It's the branding. Is it the case that we think anybody should be able to apply for a compatible, for a compatibility approval? I know that in Jakarta,
just the brand. I think that's from a compatibility statement to be able to make bona fide accurate claims. Anybody can be able to make those claims if you want to have access to the compatibility logo and participate in the branding program.
So right. So if you this is all about the branding program, not about implementation.
Yeah, good clarification. Yeah. Absolutely. TCK is free. Anyone can get it. Anyone can run it. Anyone can make statements of compatibility. And just like Jakarta, you can make depending on how it goes here, you could make a certification request, and that certification request can get a +1, and you can make factual statements.
Yes. Thank you.
Sorry. So is the current wording ideal, or should it be modified based on Ed's prior comment?
Should an implementer with a compatible implementation? I think it's close enough.
Okay.
I mean,
think so too.
it's the participate in the MicroProfile compatibility program, but the net effect is access to the logo.
Right. Okay. All right. And you know what? Let's go back up to kind of where we were here. We got a little bit ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, and so when we
mhm.
go through the rest of that spreadsheet of things that get done, I think we know how to do it. It really is just coming down to this key question.
Yeah, we knocked out a few of these or addressed a few of these yesterday and updated the status. So we are making progress.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Thanks for the link, Ed. Anything else on marketing or branding and compatibility?
The brand, sorry, the branding program is still waiting on. We need to get that logo survey going.
Oh yeah.
That I don't know if that's still the long pole in this or not. I've seen progress on that, but
there. Okay, I don't know if there's anything else we need to update here. We didn't really talk about anything that's different from last week.
Well, so John, one thing I wanted to say is our counter proposal to getting this thing moving forward is to not require joining the working group and have the Eclipse Foundation state if the cost to maintain it is not being managed by the current budget, and make that explicit item that the working group has to approve going forward. Because we don't believe that this cost should scale as a function of usage.
Well, there is some, because everyone that would use the logo has to enter into the trademark license agreement. So we've got to accept the agreement, file the agreement, and check to see that users of the agreement the users of the logo actually did enter into the agreement with us and fulfill their obligations. It's a brand that's got to be protected and licensed.
Which
But
email
I agree with
alias
your point, Scott, with regards to that we want it to scale, and it needs to be cost efficient.
So Scott, which email thread did you send that to? Which email list? I was going to try and paste a link to the archive of this discussion.
I think it was on the marketing document itself.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was in the
there was
meeting
also-
minutes, and
Okay.
it could have been my bad for doing it there.
No, it's all right. I just want to be able to link to it. John, to link to.
So the question at some point for the steering committee is, we've heard from clearly from Red Hat and I believe Tommy Tribe. What is the input from others? And is there a consensus? Is a vote required? What's the request that you want us to follow up on? We know how to do the program where membership's required. The one where it's covered by the existing fees and membership isn't required is what's being put on the table by Scott, and then seconded by Red Hat. The question is what is your direction? We're having a robust discussion, but I think we need an outcome. And a part of that could be, do we know how to get there from here? I.e. considerations like having a non-Eclipse Foundation member enter into the trademark license agreement for the compatibility logo, stuff like that, which we've got to think through. But
Yeah, I think it would be helpful to have a discussion on the mailing list, getting a consensus. I didn't understand now what is the requirement to not having the people joining the MicroProfile working group. One thing I might understand is that might be interesting if we would do a compatibility program for a spec or component spec only instead of the complete platform. Then it might be interesting to rethink that and add that additional complexity and not do the same like within Jakarta EE. Why doing it now? Yeah, I didn't understand, because now we are discussing a compatibility program for the platform only. And I would like to discuss that on the mailing list, and maybe I then understand it better.
Okay. All right, so let's see if we can, if we'll want to continue that discussion. I don't know if I want to necessarily lead that discussion. I've got a decent number of AIs here. But the discussion does need to be had, and I'm not sure who's going to lead the discussion. I can ask Amelia to do it, since she's not here right now. Assign it to her. But she's.
I'm fine to kick off the discussion with some background from the existing marketing notes. And I also think it's fine. Ultimately, we have to get to a proposal, right, that the steering committee is going to vote on. So that's got to be the goal. And as Paul mentioned, maybe an alternative is that you have a for pay usage model that's independent of joining the working group. But again, the concern would roughly be the same, is just, is this the most efficient use in promoting the widest adoption of the brand?
What do you think, Scott?
Yeah, thanks, Scott. But can we do it on the mailing list instead of the Google group?
Yeah, that's fine.
Well, I mean, the Google group is a mailing list in a way. So you want to have it in the working group list? Because the
Yes.
Google group is right, does come through emails.
The working group mailing list is at least helpful from my perspective, because I know there's more Eclipse eyes on the working group mailing list than there are on the Google group.
Yeah, I don't use the Google groups at all, for example, and would don't like to have to do it.
You're missing out on intrigue. All right, so I'll put down in the MicroProfile dash working group alias.
It is,
That's fine.
and it is an archive mailing list.
Yep, I'm fine with that.
Okay, cool.
All right, move on to infrastructure / website. Neither David nor Ruslan are on. So I'm gonna put down.
Hey, I got a point on this one.
Yeah.
You know, way back when I saw a budget item for infrastructure that was in, and should we, should the infrastructure costs for the website get shifted over to the working group? I think there was, there might have been AWS and Cloudflare. Does it make sense to shift those over to Eclipse accounts? And then,
Yeah.
then they're funded out of the working group. They're funded on behalf of the working group by the foundation.
We should have that discussion. I think it's a very good question, but David's not here. Having David as a part of that, since he's the one that kind of manages that right now, would from a timing perspective. But it's a very good question.
Okay, cool. Just putting it out there.
Okay. Currently funding. We'll have discussion. Later, I'll say online. Again, I'm trying to keep this more of a status call. Paul, if you want to, you could start that conversation. It's a good question.
Okay.
You know, yeah, just pose it to, again, I default to the Google group if other people think it's better to have, since it's a funding issue, have it in the MicroProfile working group. I'm okay with that.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Oops. All. Oops, I got it in a plus. There you go. See, Paul, you're right at the top of my list. Okay, there we go.
Stop attending these calls.
I start giving you more action items. That'll anyway. I'm gonna move on. Technical goals. Any updates? Roberto, you already kind of gave an update from the last call. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add.
No, I think we're fine. I mean, we'll have to discuss some of that on the technical call next week. And that's it.
Okay. For CN4J, I'll give an update on that one. We decided to kind of pause the technical discussions meetings just because I kind of felt like I was stretching to find an agenda that was ready to be had, agenda items that was with discussions that were ready to be had. And it just doesn't seem like we're ready to have those discussions in that context. So kind of pause those, and we agreed to just have the discussions online in the CN4J Alliance mailing list. Okay, additional goals, Rudy. I don't know if you and I are ever going to have any updates here, because really it's being covered in most of the other sections. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, indeed. We maybe have to review what is in the program plan, but I think most of them are already covered by all the other ones. But
Yeah,
let's have a check again to see what we can do in the last few months, if there is anything specific which is not covered already by the other topics.
okay, yeah, let's do that. And then if there's anything else under miscellaneous, if anyone wants to add anything. Alrighty. All right, so we'll give everyone back roughly 20 minutes. So thanks everyone for joining the call. See everyone next week on the technical call if you join. Same bad time, different bad channel. And see you here in 2 weeks, same bad time, same bad channel. All right. Thanks everyone.
Yeah, bye for now.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.